There comes a moment in your life when you realize something powerful. Most of the limits you think are holding you back aren't coming from other people. They're coming from inside you. The world can try to shake you, distract you, push you into fear, but it cannot control a mind that has decided to rise. It cannot break a spirit that refuses to bow. You have to understand this. People only have the power over you that you hand to them. The second you take it back, the second you draw the line and decide who you are and what you stand for, you become dangerous. Not in a harmful way, but in a way that makes negativity, doubt, and pressure lose their grip on you. Being unshakable isn't about being perfect. It's about being committed. Being untouchable isn't about being cold. It's about being grounded. When you walk with purpose, noise fades. When you walk with conviction, opinions shrink. When you walk with vision, fear stops chasing you. This is the mindset of someone who refuses to live controlled by the world and chooses instead to control their destiny. Today, you step into that version of yourself. The version that cannot be moved, cannot be manipulated, cannot be owned by anyone's expectations but your own. When you realize that no one can control a person who has clarity of purpose and self-belief, your entire world shifts. Most people spend their lives reacting to opinions, reacting to pressure, reacting to criticism, reacting to fear. They let the world tell them who they should be, how they should act, what they should want, and when they should move. But the moment you discover your own purpose, the moment you understand exactly why you're waking up every day, something changes inside you. You stop moving like a follower and start moving like a leader. You stop bending under the weight of other people's expectations and start walking with your own direction. Purpose creates focus, and focus creates strength. When you know who you are and where you're going, distractions lose their power. People can say what they want, but their words don't hit the same. They can doubt you, but their doubt doesn't stick. They can try to sway you, but you no longer shift as easily. Instead of being controlled by approval, you're guided by intention. Instead of being controlled by fear, you're driven by vision. Clarity is like armor. It protects you from the noise that used to slow you down. And self-belief reinforces that armor. It's not about being arrogant. It's about trusting that you can grow, learn, and take steps even when the path isn't perfect. When you believe in your purpose and in your ability to pursue it, you become unmanageable in the best way. People can no longer manipulate your emotions because you've anchored your confidence within, not outside. They can't guilt you into quitting because you know what you're fighting for. They can't pressure you into becoming someone you're not because you're committed to your own identity and direction. This combination of purpose and self-belief makes you mentally strong, emotionally steady, and spiritually grounded. You stop seeking permission to live your life because you finally understand it's yours. You stop giving your power away to people who never earned it. You stop shrinking to fit into spaces you've outgrown. When your purpose is bigger than your fears and your belief is stronger than your doubts, no one can control you. You rise above the noise, the pressure, and the expectations, and you move with a kind of certainty that cannot be shaken by anyone or anything in this world. Strength comes from discipline, not from being liked or approved by others, because real strength isn't built on applause. It's built on consistency, effort, and self-control. Too many people rely on the opinions of others to feel confident, but that kind of confidence is fragile. It disappears the moment someone criticizes you or stops praising you. Discipline, on the other hand, is something you build within yourself. It's the decision to keep showing up even when no one is watching, even when no one is cheering, even when no one understands what you're working toward. Discipline is waking up early when you'd rather sleep, studying when you'd rather scroll, practicing when you'd rather relax. It's choosing long-term growth over short-term comfort. And when you live like that, you develop a level of strength that doesn't need validation to stand tall. Approval from others is temporary. One day people like you, the next day they don't. One moment they support you, the next they judge you. If your strength comes from their opinions, you'll always be unstable. But when your strength comes from discipline, you're grounded. You know what you're doing, why you're doing it, and where you're heading. Discipline becomes the engine behind your growth. It forces you to take responsibility, to develop habits that build your future, and to push yourself beyond what feels easy. And that process builds character, real character, which is something no one can take from you. The truth is, people respect discipline more than likability. They may not say it out loud, but they admire those who stay committed, who stay focused, who build themselves with effort rather than excuses. You gain respect not by pleasing everyone, but by mastering yourself. That self-mastery gives you quiet power, the kind of power that doesn't brag, doesn't yell, and doesn't need attention to be real. It's the power of someone who knows they can rely on themselves. Once discipline becomes your foundation, emotional noise loses its influence. Criticism doesn't break you. Lack of recognition doesn't discourage you. Doubt from others doesn't slow you down. You stop being controlled by the need to fit in, and you start being guided by the need to grow. You become the kind of person who doesn't wait for motivation because discipline carries you forward. And that kind of strength makes you unshakable because it comes from choices you make every single day, not from the shifting opinions of the world around you. When you stop chasing validation, you become mentally untouchable because your mind is no longer held hostage by what people think, say, or expect from you. Most people don't realize how much of their life is shaped by the quiet fear of judgment. They change how they talk, how they dress, what dreams they pursue, and even what truths they hide, just to avoid criticism or gain approval. But living like that keeps you trapped. It keeps you seeking permission instead of creating your own path. The moment you stop trying to impress others, you release a pressure that was never meant to be yours. You stop performing and start living. Validation is addictive because it feels good in the moment, but it weakens you in the long run. It teaches you to depend on applause instead of purpose. It teaches you to wait for approval instead of trusting your intuition. It teaches you to shrink your identity just to fit into other people's expectations. But when you decide you're done with that, when you decide your worth is not up for negotiation, you unlock a level of freedom that most people never experience. You begin to move differently, think differently, and show up differently. You no longer measure your value by how many people praise you, but by how true you are to your own standards. This mental shift makes you untouchable because no one can manipulate a person who isn't looking for validation in the first place. They can withhold praise, but it won't stop you. They can criticize you, but it won't derail you. They can misunderstand you, but it won't break your spirit. You no longer crumble under pressure because you don't rely on others to confirm your identity. You stand firm because you know who you are without needing anyone to tell you. When you stop chasing validation, your focus returns to your goals instead of your reputation. You spend less time worrying about opinions and more time building your future. You also start attracting people who respect you, not because you try to impress them, but because you live authentically. There's a quiet strength in someone who doesn't need approval to keep moving. It's the strength of someone who is led by inner conviction instead of outside noise. And that is what makes you unshakable. It's not arrogance, it's self-trust. It's the understanding that your path is too important, your growth too valuable, and your purpose too meaningful to waste energy begging for validation that was never required in the first place. Your standards determine the level of respect you receive from the world because people don't treat you based on who you are. They treat you based on what you allow. Every choice you make, every boundary you set, every expectation you hold communicates something about your value. When your standards are low, people sense it. They take advantage, they test limits, and they push you into situations where you feel used, unseen, or underestimated. But when your standards rise, everything around you begins to shift. You stop tolerating disrespect. You stop accepting half-effort. You stop letting people drain your energy or play with your emotions. Instead, you build a life that matches the value you finally acknowledge within yourself. Having strong standards isn't about being harsh or demanding. It's about protecting your peace, your growth, and your direction. It's about understanding that your time is limited, your energy is precious, and your purpose is too important to waste on things that don't align with who you're becoming. When you raise your standards, you naturally start attracting people who respect your boundaries, honor your effort, and understand your worth. You'll notice that the wrong people fall away, not because you changed too much, but because they never deserved close access to you in the first place. The world gives its best to people who refuse to settle. That refusal is powerful. It shows discipline. It shows self-respect. It shows clarity. And people respond to that clarity by treating you with the seriousness and dignity that you show yourself. When you decide that certain behaviors are unacceptable, that certain environments don't fit your spirit, that certain relationships don't deserve your heart, you begin shaping your reality instead of simply receiving it. Your standards also influence the opportunities that come your way. When you hold yourself to a higher level, whether it's in your work ethic, your focus, or your character, you rise above average. You stand out not because you try harder to impress others, but because you refuse to live beneath your potential. That refusal becomes a signal to the world that you are someone who deserves respect. Most people never realize that being respected starts with how they respect themselves. It isn't about ego, it's about alignment. When you show the world that you won't lower your standards to fit into small spaces, the world eventually makes room for you in bigger ones. The respect you receive is a reflection of the standards you embody, the boundaries you protect, and the identity you choose to honor within yourself. True power is walking your path boldly, regardless of who doubts you. Because confidence isn't built in the noise of approval. It's built in the quiet moments when you choose to trust yourself even when no one else does. Most people let doubt from others become a mirror that shapes how they see themselves. They hear someone question their dreams, and suddenly those dreams feel too big. They hear someone say they're not good enough, and suddenly they start shrinking. But when you walk your path with boldness, you stop letting outside voices dictate your direction. You stop giving weight to opinions that were never meant to define you. You recognize that doubt from others usually comes from their own fears, their own limitations, their own inability to imagine more for themselves. It has nothing to do with what you're capable of. Walking boldly requires courage. Courage to take the first step when the path is unclear, courage to keep going when progress is slow, and courage to believe in yourself when people misunderstand you. But that courage becomes your power. It becomes the force that keeps you steady when life gets heavy. When you move with boldness, you set a tone for your life. You decide that you won't let fear shrink your potential. You won't let judgment steer your choices, and you won't let doubts silence your voice. This kind of power doesn't come from being loud or aggressive. It comes from being certain. Certainty in your purpose. Certainty in your direction. Certainty in your willingness to grow through whatever challenges come your way. And the moment you embrace that certainty, obstacles start looking different. Instead of seeing them as signs to stop, you see them as tests that shape your strength. Instead of seeing doubters as threats, you see them as reminders that your vision is uniquely yours. Instead of seeing setbacks as failures, you see them as recalibrations that push you closer to who you're meant to be. You become untouchable not because life gets easier, but because you get stronger. You get wiser. You get more grounded in who you are. The world respects someone who knows where they're going and refuses to walk timidly. That boldness inspires others, challenges negativity, and protects you from being controlled by fear or expectation. Your path becomes your declaration that you are here to build, grow, rise, and become everything you were meant to be. And when you own that fully, you step into a version of yourself that no doubt, no fear, and no external opinion can shake. So if this inspired you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.